You're listening to The Jacob Valk Show. He's breaking down the latest and greatest in sports as only he can. Follow him on Twitter at RealJacobValk. Here he is, Jacob Valk.
Hello, sports fans. Welcome to another edition of the Jacob Valk Show. I am Jacob Valk, and the Nets made a couple moves yesterday. And they're good moves. They're smart moves. Bringing in Jamal Crawford and Michael Beasley. They're good NBA players. Jamal Crawford is one of the best sixth men in NBA history. He's won the award 3 times. We know the type of player he is. He's a scorer off the bench. It's actually something that the Nets have lacked for a lot of the season, because that was supposed to be Dinwiddie. But as we all know, Kyrie missed a chunk of this season with injury, so Dinwiddie was forced into the starting lineup. The Nets lacked that firepower off the bench. So adding Crawford makes a ton of sense. Michael Beasley, one thing that I didn't know was that him and Kevin Durant are really good friends. Evidently, they grew up together, so that's pretty cool. I did not know that. And it's kind of funny, they were picked second overall in consecutive years. Durant went second overall in 2007 behind Greg Oden, and Beasley went second overall behind Derrick Rose. Pretty interesting how things like that work out. Beasley, if, in the immortal words of Stephen A. Smith, he could have laid off the weed, would have been a great NBA player. This is a guy in his 3rd year in the league, put up 19 points. And even before that, when he was with the Heat, he was putting up big numbers. 14 points a game in his rookie year, 15 points a game in his sophomore year. I mean, we all know the talent he is. He just couldn't lay off the weed. It's just that simple. And it's important to note that Beasley does need to serve a 5-game suspension before he can actually play for the Nets. So you'll see Justin Anderson in that backup 4 role. But once Beasley's back, this is going to be the rotation. It's going to be Chiozza, Johnson, LeVert, Crawford, Harris, Temple, Kurucs, Beasley. Beasley actually may start over Kurucs. I wouldn't be upset with that at all. And Allen, insert backup center here. It won't be Isaiah Hartenstein. He's ineligible to be added because he was waived during that transaction window or something like that. All I know is he can't play in the restarted games. That's really stupid that he can't. I don't like that, but whatever. It's also not going to be John Egbunu, who played well in the G League. It's probably going to be Amir Johnson. I wouldn't mind that at all. The Nets are adding veterans to try to make a legitimate go at this. They're going to put their best foot forward, and they're going to try to really make a big run. I commend them for it. Do I think it would have been better for them to have just sat out this restart? Yes. Because at the end of the day, this isn't what crunch time basketball is supposed to be. You're not supposed to have guys like Crawford and Beasley. Good players, don't get me wrong, but they've been out of the NBA all year. You're not supposed to have those kind of players playing meaningful minutes for you in crunch time basketball. You want to have one, maybe two on 10-day contracts or something like that. I don't mind that, but the Nets are going to have a lot. In addition to Crawford and Beasley, they're also going to have a backup center, like I said, probably Amir Johnson. They're also going to have Tyler Johnson and Justin Anderson. Rodion Kurucs also didn't play a lot this year. Zanin Musa, if he gets minutes, didn't play a lot this year. He probably won't get minutes, but if he does, if someone else tests positive or there's an injury, he's the next guy up. You know, that's not what playoff basketball is supposed to be. That's not what playoff sports is supposed to be. Or crunch time basketball or crunch time sports. It's supposed to be the players who have been with the team all year. Not a bunch of free agents cobbled together and you try to have them develop instant chemistry and go on a big run. That's what the Nets are doing here. I think they would have been better off withdrawing from the tournament. I understand why they're making a run at it. It makes sense what they're doing. It really, really does. And at the very least, as a Nets fan, it's going to be fun seeing Jamal Crawford and Michael Beasley in my team's uniform. Moving on now to Raheem Mostert's trade request. And I don't understand this wave that has swept over the NFL with these players not honoring their contracts. First Jamal Adams, then David Njoku, and now Raheem Mostert. I mean, Adams I ripped. Njoku I understood. I didn't like that he made the trade request, but I understood why he did. Mostert I don't get. This guy has one good year under his belt. That's it. Just one. We all know what he did last year. Gave the Niners much needed stability at the running back position. They tried Tevin Coleman. That didn't work. They tried Matt Breida. That didn't work. They tried Jerick McKinnon. That didn't work. They're forced into Raheem Mostert. And Mostert played well. There's no question. But now, just a little over a year after signing a big contract extension with the Niners for 3 years, that's a big extension, you want out. Look, I know I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm not a Niners fan. And the Raheem Mostert story is a really, really easy one to root for. Undrafted free agent, finally gets his shot. And then plays well. Actually used to be a Jet, but never got into a game for him. But to Raheem Mostert, I want to say this. From the bottom of my heart, go screw yourself. Please. You only have one good year. And you think that's enough to renegotiate a contract with a team that finally gave you a chance. Don't you think you should show a little bit of respect for him? Don't you think you should show a little bit of loyalty? First up, I highly doubt that the Niners are going to honor this trade request. They already traded Matt Breida. They're not going to go back to having Coleman and McKinnon as their running backs. They tried that. It didn't work. It has to be Mostert. He has to be their bell cow back. What, is this supposed to make the Niners want to sign you to an extension more and to make them more likely to meet your demands. That's not how this works. You've now salted the earth. You've now burned that bridge. I mean, who the hell do you think you are? Do you think you're Roger Craig? Do you think you're Garrison Hurst? Do you think you're Frank Gore? Because you're not. Alright, you're a good running back. You had a good year last year. You have to do it again. This has nothing to do with devaluing the running back position. This has to do with a guy who only has one good year under his belt, hasn't started a single game in the NFL. I'm not even joking. Raheem Mostert has not started a single game. But the Niners gave him a chance. And they signed him to a 3-year extension before he had the good year last year. Now he wants out? You didn't honor my contract demand, so now I want out? What a spoiled brat. What gives you the right to make a trade request? Look, at least you've accomplished something in this league. Alright, you were the second best team in the NFL last year. Good for you. But you only have one good stinking year under your belt. That's it. Do it again. And then go back to the bargaining table. But to say that after one good year the Niners should tear up the contract with you? That's ridiculous. These players need to learn to honor their contracts. Alright? Yeah, you're underpaid. You know what? There are a lot of people that are underpaid. Terry McLaurin had a really, really good year last year. He only has 1 year under his belt. He should now renegotiate his contract, right? Same thing with Josh Jacobs. To hell with the contracts that they signed. I understand that Mostert's only making $2.9 million. Yeah, he's underpaid. But it's not an egregious amount. This guy didn't rush for 1,000 yards last year. I understand 8 touchdowns, but that didn't lead the league. That's a touchdown every other game. Look, he gave the Niners needed stability at running back. And he was set to be there for a long time. In fact, he could still be there for a long time. Like I said, I don't think the Niners are gonna adhere to this trade request. What team out there really needs a running back? This was such a great draft for running backs that any team that needed a running back drafted one. Second up, there are running backs out there in free agency right now in LaShawn McCoy and Bilal Powell that you can sign, and you don't have to trade anything for them. No chance Mostert gets traded. None. There's a better chance of the NFL going back and awarding the Super Bowl to the Niners and stripping it from the Chiefs than there is of Raheem Mostert being traded. Not gonna happen. What a stupid, stupid man. Moving on now to hockey. And the New Jersey Devils have a new head coach. It is Lindy Ruff. We heard that Peter Laviolette was the frontrunner. Evidently, that's not the case, as the Devils went with Ruff. I gotta say, I'm not crazy about this hire. Ruff has been with the Rangers since the 17-18 season. And he's been in charge of their defense and their penalty kill. Let's go back and see how the Rangers did in defense and penalty kill. In his first year there, the Rangers allowed the 4th most goals in the NHL, and they ranked 12th in penalty kill percentage. So, middle of the pack, a little bit above middle of the pack, but the defense is abysmal. The year after that, the Rangers again allowed the 4th most goals in the NHL, and their penalty kill percentage plummeted. They had the 5th worst penalty kill percentage in the entire league. Let's go to this year now. The Rangers have allowed the 8th most goals in the NHL, and they've had the 9th worst penalty kill in the whole league. This guy's system just hasn't translated to the modern NHL. Once upon a time, Ruff was a really good head coach. He was really good with the Sabres. And he was decent with the Stars. Not great defensively, which was his calling card, but the Stars made the playoffs twice. They had a 50-win season, his second to last year there. And he spent a bunch of time with the Sabres. They made the Stanley Cup Finals once under him. But that was then. This is now. Ruff's system does not translate well to modern NHL hockey. The Devils would have been so much better off hiring Peter Laviolette or Gerard Gallant or keeping Alain Nasreddine. John Stevens would have made more sense, even though I'm not a big John Stevens fan. I can promise you this, Lindy Ruff is not going to be there for an extremely long period of time. He's going to last 2, maybe 3 seasons, and then that's it. The Devils will realize that they made a mistake, and they're going to move on from him. This will not work, I promise you that. This guy just hasn't been able to adapt his system to the new NHL. This is going to crash and burn hard. But the Devils did do the right thing in keeping Tom Fitzgerald as their GM. Very well-respected hockey mind. I just think he made a big mistake here. Hopefully, for the Devils' sake, Fitzgerald can get some good players in there and mask Ruff's defects. But I just don't see it happening. Alright, it's time for decades of dumbass decisions. We're on the 4-13 matchups, and we'll start with the 2004 ALCS versus the Mike Lowell trade. Do you really need me to tell you about the 2004 ALCS? I mean, if you're a Yankee hater, you revel in this. And if you're a Yankee fan, you know what it is, you just choose not to think about it. I mean, truthfully, I don't remember much from this series live. I was 7 years old, so I was aware of what was happening. And have I gone back and watched some of those games? Yes. But as it was happening live, I don't remember vividly what I was doing. I remember watching Game 3 with my father. It was in Boston. The Yankees destroyed the Red Sox 19-8. My father and I were doing backflips. We were so happy. The Yankees are going to go back to the World Series. You know, they're better than the Cardinals. They're better than the Astros. After getting upset in 2003, they're going to come back with a vengeance, and they're going to win the whole thing. It's going to be so great. Oh, how wrong we were. And it started in Game 4. just mentioning it makes me get the shakes. I'm not even kidding. Yankees are up 4-3 in the bottom of the ninth. Best reliever in baseball history, Mariano Rivera, in to close it out. There's not a single Red Sox fan on earth that thinks that they're going to come back. There's not a single Yankee fan on earth that thinks they're going to blow it. We've seen Mariano save these games countless times. Instead, it only took 2 batters to see how wrong we were. Kevin Millar draws a walk, replaced by Dave Roberts. Roberts steals second. Bill Miller hits a single to score Roberts from second. Dave freaking Roberts kills the Yankees. And then in the bottom of the 12th, David Ortiz hits the walk-off off of Paul Quantrill. But you know what? All the Yankee fans are thinking, alright, you're just prolonging the inevitable. The Yankees are going to win one more game. Blowing a 3-0 lead wasn't even considered. It wasn't even in the most outer recesses of our minds. Realize, it had never been done in baseball history. It had only been done twice before in sports history. By the, I think, 1942 Maple Leafs, and the 75 Islanders did it. Game 5. The Yankees are up 4-2 in the bottom of the 8th. The second pitch that David Ortiz sees, he hits for a home run off Tom Gordon. And I liked Flash. I really did. Millar draws a walk, replaced by Dave Roberts. Trot Nixon hits a single, Roberts goes to third. Mariano Rivera comes in. The Yankees are still up by 1. All Rivera has to do is get out of this inning. Don't allow a fly ball. Don't even allow a ground ball. Just strike Varitek out. And then I don't care what you do to Bill Miller to get him out. I mean, this isn't on Rivera, this game, but it kind of hurts to think about what would have happened if Rivera had just struck out Varitek. Instead, Varitek hit a sac fly. It tied the game at 4. In the bottom of the 14th inning, Esteban Loaiza had pitched well in extras. I'll give him credit. I didn't like Esteban Loaiza with the Yankees, but you know what? He was redeeming himself to me all throughout this game. Then, immediately, all those bad feelings came back in the bottom of the 14th. Damon draws a walk. Manny Ramirez draws a walk. Moves Damon to second. David Ortiz hits an RBI single to score Damon to win the game. 3-2 Yankees. Okay, back at Yankee Stadium for Game 6. The Yankees are going to put it away here, right? No, they didn't. That stupid bloody sock! That... oh man, words I can't say. I think it's still in Cooperstown, that bloody sock. This I remember as a 7-year-old. I wanted them to check the sock. I was convinced it was some kind of illegal substance. I know it wasn't now, obviously, but just back then my 7-year-old mind couldn't comprehend what was happening. Curt Schilling was great. 7 innings of 1-run ball. The lowest point of that series, though, it wasn't the Roberts moment. It wasn't any of the David Ortiz moments. And yes, in answer to your next question, that's what really soured him to Yankees fans. But it was none of those things. It was Alex Rodriguez hitting a ground ball back to Bronson Arroyo in the 8th inning. Derek Jeter had just hit an RBI single. It was 4-2 Red Sox. The Yankees had to get something going here, or else this was it. Arroyo goes to tag A-Rod. Instead of being graceful, A-Rod literally slaps the ball out of Arroyo's glove. He literally slapped it out of his glove. Needless to say, you can't do that. That's interference. A classless display. That's it for the Yankees. They do nothing in the 8th after that. And in the bottom of the 9th, they do nothing. Game 7, everyone knew the Yankees were going to lose. There wasn't a single person on earth who thought the Yankees were going to win that game. Kevin Brown starting. That was just a white flag by the Yankees. All right, we give up. We surrender. Doesn't even make it out of the 2nd inning. The lowest point in that game was the Johnny Damon grand slam off Javier Vasquez. My father was listening to the game on radio. He was working in the city at the time. As he was commuting home, he was listening to the game. He turned it off. He couldn't take it. It was 6-0 Yankees after 2. Now, I wasn't there for this game, but Mike Francesa was, and you can go back and listen to the Mike and the Mad Dog show the day after, October 21st, 2004. Go back and listen to that show. And Mike says something very important. I think he was there with Dog. The Red Sox fans took over Yankee Stadium all throughout that game. After the Grand Slam, there were no cheers for the Yankees. It was cheers for the Red Sox. That's how bad it got. The Red Sox had taken over New York. Dog was doing backflips because he hated the Yankees. In fact, he still hates the Yankees. He's the only person who could ever do a show in New York and never root for a New York team. God bless Chris Russo. And I still like Mike. I still like what he does on The Fan. But one other thing that Mike said on that show still rings true. I'll paraphrase because I don't remember exactly what he said, but he said, in effect, for time immemorial, the Red Sox and their fans will always be able to point to this, coming back from 3-0 down. The Yankees had Bucky Dent. They had Babe Ruth. They had Boone. Now the Red Sox had something. And they went on to sweep the Cardinals to win their first World Series in 86 years. Mike Lowell turned into a really good player, 4-time All-Star, 2-time World Series winner. He actually beat the Yankees in 2003 with the Marlins. Look, it was a bad trade. He was traded for 3 schmageggies. Todd Noel never played a game in the majors. Mark Johnson never played a game for the Yankees. And Ed Yarnall did nothing in the majors. He was involved in 2 bad trades. He was involved in the Lowell trade, and he was involved in the Mike Piazza trade that sent the pizza man to the Mets. Highway robbery for the Mets. But it doesn't even come close to the 2004 ALCS. To be perfectly honest with you, the Lowell trade was the last addition to the Yankees side of decades of dumbass decisions. It was either going to be him or the Doug Drabeck trade, but I went with Lowell because Rick Rhoden, who the Yankees traded Drabeck for, actually had a couple decent seasons for the Yankees. Drabeck went on to have a really good career, but at least the Yankees got something for Drabek. The Yankees got nothing for Lowell. That's why I included Lowell, but he was the last person included. Doesn't even come close to the 04 ALCS. Moving over to the Islanders side of things, we have Bronislav Meze going up against Thomas Vanek. Who is Bronislav Meze? Good question. I've talked about Trevor Linden before. The Islanders gave up a lot to get Trevor Linden. If you'll recall, they gave up Todd Bertuzzi, Brian McCabe, and a third-rounder that eventually became Jarkko Ruutu. And Linden was okay for the Islanders. He wasn't doing what he did with the Canucks, but those were really bad Islander teams. There's only so much you can do. Linden was solid with the Islanders. Not great, not terrible, but he was traded to the Canadiens. I don't mind the Islanders trading Linden. Alright, it was clear that the Islanders weren't going to win a Stanley Cup with Trevor Linden. What I mind is what they got in return for Linden. They got the 10th overall pick in the 1999 draft. Good return. No question. Instead of taking a guy like Barrett Jackman or Martin Havlat, the Islanders took Bronislav Meze. The reason that you've never heard of Meze, and the reason that most Islanders fans haven't heard of Meze, is because he was terrible. He only played 2 seasons for the Islanders, only got 7 points in 66 games, got traded to the Panthers, played 5 seasons there, but only put up 17 points in 174 games. If you're going to trade Trevor Linden, who is still a good player, you have to do better than to pick Bronislav Meze. It's just that simple. And after he left the Islanders, Linden had some good seasons. He was good with the Canadiens. He was good with the Capitals. And he went back to the Canucks and was good there. Bronislav Meze was never good. Thomas Vanek, if you go back in time and evaluate that trade right when it happened, it made sense. The chemistry that Matt Moulson and John Tavares had slipped. Moulson was on the third line. It was clear that Tavares needed a left winger to play with. He had Okposo on the right side, but he needed a left winger. Moulson was really, really good for a few years, but it just wasn't working anymore. So the Islanders swung a huge trade for Vanek. They gave up Moulson and their first and second round picks in 2015. Thomas Vanek played really well for the Islanders. Almost averaged a point a game, 44 points in 47 games. But Vanek didn't re-sign with the Islanders. That was his free agent year. And the Islanders gave up a lot for Vanek. They needed him to re-sign. The Islanders weren't getting over the hump that year, but it was okay. Because if Vanek had re-signed, you have a really good first line with Vanek, Tavares, and Okposo in the future. All you have to do is iron out the rest of the roster, and you've got something special brewing. Instead, Vanek says he wants to test free agency, and he's traded to the Canucks for Sebastian Kohlberg and a second-round pick. Needless to say, nothing there worked out for the Islanders. Kohlberg did nothing. That second-rounder did nothing. It was a good decision to trade for Vanek. I was really happy when they did it. It made perfect sense. And I bought a Thomas Vanek t-shirt. But right after he was traded, I pulled the shirt out of my closet. I held it up. And I said to my dad, well, I guess I don't need this anymore. That is worse than Meze. No question. The Islanders gave up a lot to get Vanek. All they got was 47 games. I don't even blame the Islanders for that. I blame Vanek. I still haven't forgiven him for it. Moving over to the Jets, we have the 1998 AFC title game versus Rich Kotite. The 98 AFC title game was between the Jets and the Broncos. This was Bill Parcells' best year as Jets head coach. They went 12-4. They had the 5th best offense in the league and the 2nd best defense in the league. Vinny Testaverde was playing great. Curtis Martin was playing great. Mo Lewis was playing great. Aaron Glenn was playing great. Victor Green was playing great. The Jets were on the verge of doing something really, really special. And they beat the Jaguars to meet the Broncos in the AFC title game. With a little over 3 minutes gone in the third quarter, the Jets had a 10-0 lead. They had stifled John Elway. He could get nothing going. But he didn't need to. Because Terrell Davis ran roughshod over the Jets. He had 32 rushes in that game for 167 yards and a touchdown. You stop John Elway, you have a good chance to win that game. Well, you have to stop Terrell Davis also. And the Jets couldn't. Testaverde was really not great. He wasn't abysmal, but he wasn't great. Threw for over 350 yards, but he didn't complete a touchdown pass, threw 2 interceptions. Curtis Martin had his worst game ever as a Jet. And I loved Curtis Martin growing up, but this game was terrible. 13 rushes for only 14 yards. It doesn't get much worse than that. Now, Joe Benigno, the inspiration for Decades of Dumbass Decisions, has said that the Jets would have gone on to win the Super Bowl if they had beaten the Broncos. He thinks they were better than the Falcons. And you know what? He may be right. No one's going to be mistaking Chris Chandler for Matt Ryan anytime soon. I mean, God only knows what Jamal Anderson would have done against the Jets if they couldn't stop Terrell Davis. Couldn't stop Jamal Anderson. Anderson was really good. Not Terrell Davis good, but just a step below. Anderson would have gotten his. But the Jets would have had a good chance of winning that game. Rich Kotite is one of the worst coaches in not just Jets history. When you look at Jets history, he's the worst coach in Jets history by far. Not even close. Lou Holtz is a distant second. But Kotite is one of the worst coaches in NFL history for what he did with the Jets. Now, this guy had 4 good seasons for the Eagles. He never finished with less than 7 wins. He was let go by the Eagles and was snatched up by the Jets. Nothing wrong with that, right? Especially when you factor in the fact that Kotite had actually been offensive coordinator for the Jets. So it was a nice homecoming. Well, no one told Kotite that, because in his first year with the Jets, he went 3-13. The offense was literally the worst offense in the NFL, and their defense wasn't much better. you'd be hard-pressed to find anything positive to say. But Kotite gets a second year. Okay. Can't be worse, right? Oh, yes he can! Because the 96 Jets went 1-15. Thank God for the Arizona Cardinals. The one team they beat. 31-21. And the Cardinals that year weren't world beaters. They went 7-9. I mean, if you go back and watch those games, the Jets are abysmal. Absolutely abysmal. And that seems like an understatement. I have watched those games. It is painful to watch. Kotite, in his 2 seasons with the Jets, went 4-28. That equates to a 125 winning percentage. After his stint with the Jets, he never worked in the NFL again. That's how bad he was. That beats the 98 AFC title game to me. Losing 28 games beats losing just 1 game. I understand that one game was an AFC title game, but when you go 4-28, you're advancing. Moving on now to the Brooklyn Nets, and this was really, really hard. I've been looking forward to explaining this for a long time. Jacob, how is this hard? You have the Boston Celtics trade going up against the saga of centers. I don't even know what the saga of centers is. Well, I'll tell you. Firstly, let me just say that there is no question that the Boston Celtics trade is one of the worst trades in, if not sports history, then certainly NBA history. If you wanted to say sports history, I'd listen to you. You don't need me to rehash it. You know it. Pierce, Garnett, Terry, and DJ White for 4 first-rounders. DJ White doesn't play a game for the Nets. Jason Terry spends half a season with the Nets before he's traded for Marcus Thornton. Paul Pierce leaves after the season. Kevin Garnett spends 1.5 seasons with the Nets and was a shell of his former self. The Celtics used 2 of those 4 first-rounders on Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. The other 2 they used on James Young and the Kyrie Irving trade. So, you really just have to focus on Brown and Tatum. But what is the saga of centers? How is this tough? Well, I'll tell you. Throughout the late 90s, the Nets had a player by the name of Jason Williams. Jason Williams was one of the best centers in the NBA. From 1996 to 1999, he averaged 12 points and 13 rebounds a game. Double-double threat every night. He made the All-Star game in 97-98. But then a catastrophic injury hit. He collided with Stephon Marbury, and Williams really messed up his leg. He needed surgery that ended his career. And it's a big what if. How great could Jason Williams have been if he had stayed healthy? He wouldn't have been Shaquille O'Neal or Elton Brand good, but he would have been in that tier below, I think. Alright, well, Jacob, how did the Nets move on? Well, I'll tell you. Their starting center in the 2000-2001 season was Evan Eschmeyer. It is perfectly fine if you don't know that name. Eschmeyer only played 4 seasons in the NBA. The year after that, the Nets signed Todd McCullough. McCullough was good in the regular season. And if you've been keeping score, you know that the Nets went on to face the Lakers in the NBA Finals that year. McCullough got absolutely manhandled by Shaquille O'Neal. It would be like a 90-year-old woman trying to stop Joel Embiid or Karl Anthony Towns or Nikola Jokic. That's how bad it was. The year after that, the Nets trade McCullough and Keith Van Horn to the Sixers for Dikembe Mutombo. Mutombo only plays 24 games for the Nets. Jason Collins needs to start, and really wasn't that great. He wasn't terrible. He was okay-ish. Got killed by Tim Duncan. In the offseason, the Nets signed Alonzo Mourning, who had supposedly recovered from his kidney disease. No, he didn't. Mourning only played 12 games for the Nets that year. Collins went back in the starting lineup and was manhandled by Ben Wallace in the semifinals. The year after that, the Nets can't count on Mourning. Jason Collins starts every game he plays. Nenad Kristic is good, but not great. And they get swept by the Heat in the playoffs. Big part of that, Shaquille O'Neal and Udonis Haslem dominating the frontcourt matchup. The year after that, the exact same thing. Collins and Kristic have carbon copy years. The Nets meet the Heat in the playoffs again, and Shaq and Haslem destroy the Nets again. The year after that, Kristic is on the verge of having his best season ever, but he got hurt. He only played in 26 games that year. Mickey Moore was forced into the starting lineup. Not that good. Collins was dreadful. Clifford Robinson was there also. I kind of skipped over him. I shouldn't have. He was expected to help in the front court. He didn't. And the Nets lost in 6 games to LeBron James's Cavaliers. The year after that, they missed the playoffs altogether. Their center play was still dreadful. Jason Collins, really not that good. Josh Boone, major bust. Nenad Kristic couldn't stay healthy. Really, really bad season. After that, they drafted Brook Lopez, and that's where the saga ends. But from Jason Williams to Brook Lopez, the Nets trotted out centers like Evan Eschmeyer, Jamie Fike, Todd McCullough, Dikembe Mutombo, Alonzo Mourning, Clifford Robinson, Jason Collins, and Nenad Kristic. In their primes, could Mutombo, Mourning, and Robinson have gotten the job done? Yeah, but the Nets got him late. That's the saga of centers. There is no question in my mind that the main reason the Nets couldn't get over the hump with Kidd and Vince Carter and Richard Jefferson and Kerry Kittles and all those guys was because of their lack of quality minutes at the center position. There is a sizable percentage of me that wants to have the saga of centers advance over the Pearson-Garnett trade. The reason I'm picking the Celtics trade to advance, though, is because the saga of centers is more abstract. It's easy to look now at the Celtics and see what Jaylen Brown has become and what Jason Tatum has become. And it's a fair bet to say that they will win at least one, probably two NBA titles with the Celtics. That's how great they are. They've taken major steps forward this year. If they don't win anything with the Celtics, then maybe we can revisit that trade as not being as bad as the Louisiana Purchase. And maybe the saga of centers would advance. But for now, the Boston Celtics trade advances. Until tomorrow, I am Jacob Valk saying that Rod Carew is the only person on earth that could go 4 for 3.